So moving us on to the next theory of attachment, we're going to look at evolutionary theory of attachment. As I said in the last screencasts, you know that there's two different theories: learning theory, which we looked at last lesson, evolutionary theory, which we're moving on to this lesson. I won't recap learning theory. If you want to go back over that learning theory, then have a look at the previous screencast. Today, as I said, we're going to focus more on evolutionary theory of attachment. So, evolutionary theory of attachment is based on the idea that in order to survive, the species attaches to the parent or infant. So, obviously, the infant attaches to the parent attaches to the infant, and this is so the caregiver has a role in feeding and protecting the infant. This gives us a survival advantage. So, a survival advantage means any ability or trait which increases the chance of survival. As you can imagine, if the infant didn't have anyone protecting and feeding the infant, there's a very high chance that that infant would die very quickly, especially when we're thinking back to the times of the EEA, the evolutionary environments for adaptation. There would be predators, it would be cold, they wouldn't have buildings to live in, so that the attachment behaviour would give them a huge survival advantage in comparison to no attachment behaviour. So, Bowlby's theory of attachment. Bowlby said that humans have a biological need to form an attachment with a caregiver, and he said that biological need was innate, it was inborn, it was inside us, and we didn't need to learn this. Humans are much more complex than animals. As you know, we don't imprint. When we've looked at the Lorenz study with the geese, that's not how humans build their attachments. In fact, attachments are reciprocal, so they're a two-way process between the primary caregiver and between the infant itself. And during the evolution of the human species, it would have been the babies who stayed close to their mothers and developed an attachment to their mothers that would have survived to have children of their own. So I'm going to go through the key characteristics of Bowlby's theory. First of all, I've mentioned the key term innate. So the word innate means that some qualities are born within the womb itself, they're inborn and inherit effectively innate. Bowlby believed that attachment behaviours are instinctive or innate, and attachment behaviours will be activated by any conditions that seem to threaten the achievement of proximity, such as separation, insecurity and fear. So when the infant feels separated, insecure or scared, they would go towards their caregiver. That's an innate behaviour. Second of all, monotropy. So Bowlby did not rule out the possibility of other attachment figures being important to a child. However, he did believe that there should be a primary bond with that primary caregiver, and it was much more important than any other bond. And this bond was usually with the mother. This bond develops first, and it's qualitatively different from any subsequent attachments. So that first important attachment is different than any other secondary or multiple attachments that are made. Third of all, the internal working model. So the attachment relationship acts as a prototype or a template for all future social relationships, and disrupting this model, this template, can have severe consequences. As I've said, the attachment that they develop with the mother or with the caregiver acts as a template, and it gives us expectations of future relationships, both with their own children and with their romantic partners when they're older. So for example, an infant who is inconsistently cared for, they may lack trust, they may expect to be left, they may expect that inconsistency from their own romantic partner, therefore lacking the trust, and they would be quite inconsistent when caring for their own children as well. Next one is a secure base. So the secure base is the idea that when the infant and the caregiver are out and about, either in the home or outside of the home, the secure base is almost like a circumference where the infant would explore the world. So as long as they feel comfortable, as long as they feel happy and not scared, they're happy to explore the world. However, this does generate a little bit of fear, anxiety, worry, so they use the parent, the primary caregiver, as reassurance, as comfort, and they use them to mitigate the anxiety or fear. What would this look like in a real world sense? Well, they probably wouldn't move more than a couple of metres away from mother. They would be looking back to check that she is happy, they both feel safe, and they would want that reassurance. So the attachment figure acts as a secure base for exploring the world. So the next feature is the critical or sensitive period. Bowlby claimed that mothering is almost useless if it's delayed until after 2.5 to 3 years old. So if no no attachment bond was formed in that first 2.5/3 years, then there'll be really serious, severe consequences. Another problem that's sometimes happens is if the attachment is formed but then it's broken or disrupted during that critical period, the child will also suffer irreversible long-term consequences of maternal deprivation. Now, what do I mean by maternal deprivation? I mean separation or loss. That could be through the parent going into hospital, that could be through death of a parent or possibly divorce. Either way, if the bond is either not created or it's broken, then this will have really long-term negative effects. And what Bowlby said is the disruption of the attachment between the infant and the primary caregiver, as I said, usually the mother, could result in a few things. So cognitive difficulties, social and emotional difficulties, and also intellectual difficulties. The next feature is social releases. So babies are born with a tendency to display certain innate behaviours, and these behaviours ensure proximity and contact with the mother or attachment figure. So proximity is closeness, physical closeness, so either grabbing or holding or walking towards or moving towards, and contact, again, being physical contact. What do I mean by social releases? Some examples. So you can see the picture on the left. You've got the little cute bunny with the big eyes. Babies also have big cute eyes. Their faces are specifically they're specifically shown certain features, so things like button noses, big eyes, and it makes us want to care for the babies. It makes us want to be close to them and be in contact with them. Another example is crying. So more often than not, if you hear a baby crying, your desire, your want is to go and see what's wrong to help the baby, and that's an innate behaviour. You want the baby to stop crying. As I said, there's species-specific behaviours, so there's no coincidence that lots and lots of animals, especially mammals, have these same features, so cute button noses and big eyes. Obviously crying is more of a species-specific behaviour because animals don't show this, but we as humans do. So, to recap, Bowlby's theory of attachment, a good way to remember the different features, there's 6 in total. Number 1 is innate, number 2 is monotropy, number 3 is internal working model, and then we've got 3 S's, doesn't really matter what order they go in, but you've got secure base, sensitive or critical period, and finally social releases. So if you can try to remember this as IMISS, IMISSS, and this should help you in the lesson. So, to test yourself without looking at the notes or the pre-reading, please make sure that you can explain the 6 features of Bowlby's evolutionary theory, be able to explain the difference between evolutionary theory and learning theory, and explain what's meant by each of those keywords.